Welcome back to Hunt the Season podcast. Happy Monday, everyone. I'm Cody. On this one, I sit down with my new buddy, Dawson Oruska. We talk about pretty much his background into hunting. And the main thing that we cover in this episode is targeting one particular buck or an age class of buck, a mature buck, which, I mean, that's a lot of us hunters. That's what we want to get. We want to get a mature buck. We want to get, some of us just want to get a legal buck, and that's fine. But this episode here, we talk about how he went from pretty much shooting any buck to then going and targeting mature bucks on public land. Some on his private piece that he has access to. He does food plots, all that kind of stuff, but we primarily stick to public land and how he runs his cameras, how many pictures he gets with those cameras, and then how he goes about doing all that on public, and not really the type of terrain, but like the area that he hunts, but pretty much we talk about all that kind of stuff. So it's a really fun episode. Really enjoyed talking to Dawson. I highly recommend go checking him out if you like Ryan Glitzky type stuff. Dawson also does that as well, to not as an extreme extent as Ryan does, but he does share some tips and tactics on his story as well. Really highly recommend going checking him out. As I'm recording this, it is Thursday, and football Thursday. Eagles play the Cowboys. Go Eagles, go Birds. Partners, before we get into the episode here, OnX Deer Hunter Synthetic, Everett's Guns in Dornsive, PA. Go check them out. Go check out their guns, their Code of Silence gear. You got Campco. Use code HTS. That'll get you 10% off your entire order, whatever you order. Cutting board, wall plaque mount, candles, some shirt. He's coming out with some really cool shirts, so go check them out. I'm going to be a pre-order them. Also going to be doing a pre-order of shirts for us as well. The colors will change. I don't know what color they're going to be yet. I do know the 4 that we're getting, but it all depends on what you guys like. Then Deer Age. Go to Deer Age Wildlife Labs on Instagram. Go check them out. Use code HTS. They also have something cool they just started doing. They have a new portal, so you can enter in a hit list deer that you're going after. You can name that deer. You can put everything in, keep track of the deer you're targeting on your hit list. You can nickname the deer, keep notes, and then transfer them to your harvest deer in your trophy room for aging. And then once again, you see with the age of that deer. New statistics metric. Get more in-depth stats, including details about the average score by age class on their website. New certificates. So the certificate that I got, this one right here. So that one right there for my 3.5-year-old 6-point. But you can change the background now to like an elk, to a moose, to a bear, to a whitetail, a mule deer. So you can change the background instead of just having the plain deer in the background, the same deer on the background the whole time. So that's pretty cool. So go use code HTS. That'll save you 10% off your entire order. It also help the podcast a good amount. Also go down, check the affiliates code for Latitude, Code of Silence. We are going to be working with Code of Silence here, working on a partnership right now with them because I love their camo. I have the Fairwinds right now. I have the top and the bottom, and I have an old pullover quarter zip they had. Freaking sick. It's great you can wear it probably from the early to late season and still be good. But this one with Dawson is a fun episode. I really hope you enjoy. Go ahead, introduce yourself to the listeners, to me, who you are, and how you got into hunting a little bit, because, like I said, you haven't been heard on any podcast, and you deserve to be heard with the work you put in.
Well, first off, I appreciate hearing that, and thank you for having me on. My name is Dawson Oruska. I'm born and raised in Pennsylvania, Northeast PA. I'm 23. I've been deer hunting since I was 8 years old. I got my first buck then in rifle season. I haven't missed a hunting season since. It's just an obsession with me at this point. I don't even know if there's a word more than obsession, but that's what I am. I mean, I'm obsessed. Like it's crazy. I have family members that are like, dude, what is wrong with you? the amount of trail cameras and just me talking about deer all the time. There was just like, wow, I don't get it. I'm like, well, you don't have to, you know. It was just something I was born with. I've just always been so into hunting. I remember my dad got me my first BB gun when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Used to go out and try and shoot chipmunks and little songbirds with it. Just like that. Just when I was so young, I didn't even really know what was going on, and I was just into it at that point.
Was your dad really big into it, or was he like just kind of like I feel like the average, like my dad was like, he liked hunting, but he wasn't like driven by it like I am.
I would say he's more than the average hunter, but he's not as obsessed as I am. He's not your weekend hunter. I mean, he specifically built his life so he could hunt during the fall. He's a self-employed contractor, so am I.
Mm-hmm.
So he would specifically make a schedule so he had off October, November during rifle season, archery season, so he could go hunt. I mean, he's been doing it for 45 years now, and he's killed a buck every year that I can remember.
Wow. I always love that. Like I was my one question to you is like, because I saw during the season, I'm like, man, this guy's out like often, like he's out almost like every day he can be out. And that was my one question. Like, what kind of job do you have that allows you to be able to do that? Now you just answer that self-employed contractor.
Yep.
Did you get that idea from your dad with what he was doing?
Yeah, I mean, so I've basically been working with him since I was like 14 or 15 in the summer, after school. And then after I graduated, I was working with him for a few years. And now, then recently I was working with my uncle, his brother, who's also a general contractor. So our whole family does that. And I just basically liked being able to have my own schedule and have the time to be able to hunt as much as, I want to.
That is very ideal for a hunter who's like eaten up by whitetails and just hunting and being in the woods in general. Like that's the ideal situation right there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a little bit different now. I got a girlfriend and an 11-month-old girl, so things are a little bit more tight now. But I try and at least make it out one day a week. So usually, like Sundays are my set aside day to get out in the woods, do my scouting, hang my cameras, check my cameras. But come October, I think it's October 4th this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm off 5-6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to release after the license drop on June 23rd, which is actually this Monday. So everyone who's listening to this, we're recording this on June 19th right now. So that's last year. It was like July, wasn't it? Like the license went on sale like July something.
I don't recall. I think it was still the end of June.
Was it? Okay.
I don't really remember.
2 years ago. I know because I just watched one video like I had in my like history, my Google Drive, and I was like, said July 22nd, or maybe it was doe tags went on sale July 22nd. I don't know. It was something like that, but it was seems like it's like moving up almost every single year of like different, a little earlier, like elk you could apply for in February now compared to like waiting until you actually have to buy the license. But that's probably going to change not this coming year, but like 2026, 2027, where it's like you have to actually purchase a hunting license to be able to apply for an elk tag.
Right. I mean, I think you have to do that with most other Western states too. So I kind of agree with that. I've been applying for a few mule deer and elk tags out, West Montana, Colorado, Wyoming. So yeah, I've had to buy tags, small game licenses just to be able to, apply for the tag, get the preference point kind of thing.
Now, how many states have you applied for out there, out west?
Just Montana,
okay.
Wyoming, Colorado. I think I have about 2 points each. I think I have 2 for mule deer in Colorado, 2 for Wyoming elk, 1 for Montana elk, I think. I might have done mule deer in one of the other ones. I don't really recall.
Okay.
I'd like to start getting into Iowa or Kansas now too.
That was going to be my next question. Have you applied for Iowa at all yet?
Not yet. Money's been a little tight, applying for those other ones and then, trying to make sure I have my money here to hunt PA, which is, my top priority. But I'm thinking next year that's going to be on the list. Start applying for Iowa and Kansas.
So recently, the last couple of years, I've really started like at least trying to go around the states that are close, like Maryland, Ohio, Jersey, maybe, or Delaware, something like that, or even New York, for rifle season up there. But there's something that like something about PA, like it's a home state. And I think that's what all it is. Like, and plus we know there's big buck here. Like you put a lot of time in for PA. When you go out of state, you don't put as much time in there.
Yeah, I mean, I just went out to Ohio for my first time this past year, but I told myself I wanted to do Ohio last season, but I was like, but it's not happening until my PA tag is filled. And I did that on November 4th. So 3 days later, I was heading out to Ohio.
Yeah, that was the buck that you shot, which I want to get in that story too. That was one you were after. So
actually, no, I was after a bigger one earlier in the season.
Okay,
ended up getting shot the very night that I had almost got him that morning. So to get into it a little bit, he was I found his shed from 2023. So I put out cameras for him in July, August of 2024, started picking him up in velvet. He was about 130 to 135 inch 8-point. And he was in this one little terrain feature quite consistently a lot in daylight. I think I had more daylight pictures than nighttime pictures. He was basically coming off of this private ag field, coming up over this mountain, and then where the ridge turns, there was a draw, and he was just coming right down this draw and crossing the draw, going across a bench right to a clear cut. And I'm pretty sure he was like bedding in that like 3-4 times a week. I was getting pictures of him on my cell camera.
Okay.
And I was glassing them, mornings in the private ag up to like 8-9 o'clock in the morning on cool mornings. And you're talking like the first week of October. So I think my first hunt for him was like October 6th or 7th. He actually came through before it got light. So I heard a deer walking like 10 minutes before I could see. And then I never saw anything else. And then I got a picture from my cell camera of him walking by it, like right around that same time, because I was only set up like 100 yards from it. I was like, that's got to be him. That was him. He just came through before it got light. He literally walked right by me.
Right.
Wow. So then I went back in on October 15th, and he came off that field at 8:30 in the morning. I watched him come across the top. He dropped down. He's crossing this drainage. And where I was set up, it was a bench, and it had a lot of like higher stem count, like saplings and more brushy stuff. I figured, being a mature buck, he would want to sneak through that instead of going, down below it or above it into the open woods. So I set up for that. And wouldn't you know it, he went down the drainage more, below the bench, into the more open woods. So the closest shot I had was 45 yards. I was in my saddle. I was drawn back, and I was just like, no. And I let it down, and I let him go. I don't shoot past 35 yards. So I let him go.
That's props to you for that. Because I think there's a lot more people than would admit that they would have taken that shot.
I mean, I will say I considered it. I wanted to let that arrow fly so bad, but I'm like, I can't. I can't do that. I have wounded, a couple deer in my past, and I don't like that. I don't want to do that to him. I was like, he's consistent. He doesn't know I'm here. I'll let him go. I know where he's going. I was like, I'll set up for him this very evening. So I got out of there. Funny story, on my way out, I was sneaking through. It had actually just rained, and I saw like 120 inch 8-point on the ground. I stalked him to 30 yards and then shot right under him. And then my dad ended up shooting that very buck in rifle season later that year. So
really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Anyway, then go ahead.
Was there characteristics on that buck that you shot underneath of that you knew it was him?
Yeah, he had like, his rack was kind of funky. It was like his two sides were kind of like lopsided. They didn't line up right. So like the one was like higher and sat on his head weird, just slightly, but it was just enough. And so I ended up getting pictures of him on trail camera throughout the season after that. And I was like, yeah, that's definitely the one that I missed. That's
pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
But then I went and got sat back up in there for the evening, sat up in a slightly different spot so that I was had that just off wind for where I thought he might have been coming through in the evening. He never showed. And got dark, packed up, went out to the truck. I'm loading my stuff in the truck. This other truck drives down the road right by where I'm parked. Guy rolls down the window. He's like, yo, you seen a deer with a red luminoc in it? I'm like, nah, I haven't seen nothing. I was like, what'd you shoot? He's like, big 8-point right over there. I'm like, no. Oh. My heart dropped. And I was like, are you serious? He's like, oh yeah, I just shot him like an hour before dark. I'm like,
oh no.
I was like, you're over by the clear cut? He's like, yeah, he was bedded right in. And he came right out to me. He said he was heading my direction. He just happened to be there and caught him before he could come to me.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So that's
it stung.
Did you get to at least see him? Like, did you get to
I did
see?
not.
Okay.
He made a bad shot on him, and I went back and helped him track it the next morning. We found some blood, but then he just disappeared. We weren't sure if he was dead or alive. I got one blurry picture of what I thought was him in, I think it was the first week of November, because again he was shot October 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was supposedly found dead a couple weeks after that.
Wow, man, that's just like, because I'm chasing, like, it's so weird. When I first started hunting, I never saw myself chasing after a buck, like a one particular buck ever. But then now this piece that I'm on right now, I have a really big buck, and I'm like, now I'm trying to figure him out. And just like you, I have all these pictures, and now I'm trying to get all this data, like what the weather was, what the wind was, all this kind of stuff, like when he's daylighting at these certain areas. Because I have, like I said, I have 20 pictures of this buck. About half of them are daylight, and then the rest are like at nighttime when it's like he's near his bed. Then, like it's like 10 p.m. to 12 p.m. Like none are like in that like early morning time frame. It's always like right before midnight, or it's like midday type stuff. And it's like he has to be close to his bed at that point, in my mind. But yet I've never really went off camera data before to figure it out.
Usually for me, when I get pictures between like 10 p.m. to 12 p.m., most of the time I'm assuming he's within a reasonable distance of bedding, but he's not super close because, let's say they're leaving right around it gets dark. Maybe, if he's bedding in some cover, he's milling around for an extra half hour after it gets dark before he actually gets out and starts venturing. So by the time he gets to wherever your camera is by 10, 12, I mean, he could have been walking for an hour. So he could be within a quarter mile from there. So, that's within a reasonable distance. So you were able to find. I wouldn't say he's within 100 yards. I think that the way I look at it is that's a little too long for him to be milling around, but I would say he's within a reasonable distance from there.
Now, this buck that you were after, and then he was found dead. You said he was a mature buck.
Yeah, I believe he was about 4 or 5 years old. Yeah.
Did you ever see him with other buck at that time? Like, was he like in velvet?
When he was out in those ag fields in the mornings, I was glassing him from the trucks and stuff. He was out there with does, 5 or 6 other younger deer. He was actually out there with that 120-inch 8-point that I missed that morning. That he just came in a little bit later. So the buck I was after came in first. I almost shot him. He went by. Then on my way out, then that younger buck was coming through off the field.
Okay. All right. Because the buck I'm like targeting, I never once saw him with any other buck. Like, I wonder if you have any input on this. Like, I think when they get in a certain age, they just stop being around other buck, or like other bucks stop being around them when they know that they're clearly the biggest buck in the area. Like, do you think there's anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. I've heard it from a lot of other people. I couldn't say I have a lot of experience with like 5 or 6 plus year old deer, so I don't know for sure. Now the deer that I am hunting this year, which we'll get into a little bit later, I believe to be 6, 7 plus.
Okay.
And the only deer I have seen a couple pictures, of him within a reasonable distance of deer. I got a picture of him on a scrape, and then like a half hour later got another buck on the scrape. So, and that was probably 3rd or 4th week of October. So, I mean, it wasn't like they were like super far apart.
I love trail cameras, man. Like I just like, I know because there's one point I really want to get to, because I saw this on your story and I didn't write it down and I forget what it was, but the amount of camera data that you go through, I saw that it was like, was it 13,000 or 1,300? Like, it was a lot.
Just that night that I posted that on my story, I had deleted 13,000 pictures that I didn't need. So in a season, I have about 35, 40 cameras between some private that my family owns and all the public that I do. I probably go between 60 to 70,000 pictures every season. That's what I go through.
And is that including the cell cameras too?
Yeah, I only run like 3 cell cameras. The rest are just plain SD cards. Most of my public areas don't have cell service like that. So like when you see me post videos on my story, I just make the videos on my phone and I post them when I get out of the woods. So I don't put my cell cameras in there. I just use them for the private, closer to home. So I can be like, hey, Dad, there's this buck showing up on the food plot. You might want to get out there tonight and go shoot him, that kind of thing.
I did that to my dad because I ran cell cameras last year, and it's everyone's obviously has their own opinion on it, but like they just get in my head so much, and I just stopped doing it. I feel like I'm more confident with standard SD cameras, but like my dad went up to our camp like during the rut time frame. I think it was like it might have been November 5th to I feel like it was around when bear was in too, or like when that it might not have been, but I think it was like November 5th to like the 10th time frame. But like I had a cell camera on a point, and it was a very faint trail. So I put it there with a solar panel, all that kind of stuff, let it sit all year. Had a few does come by here and there, but then I had this it was like during 2 p.m. and this buck just comes cruising by on my cell camera. I said to my dad, like, "Hey, there's a buck up here." Like I'm at home, I'm at work, and my dad's
yep.
Hey, there's a buck, because he's like, I'm texting him like, "Do you see anything happen? Like anything like that?" Like, nope, not seeing anything. And then I sent a picture of this. It was like a really tall rack buck. Like he had to be at least a 5-point, but all I could see was like 2 on the side. And I'm like, there has to be other points right there with how tall his rack is. I'm like, Dad, there's something up here. Like, just go check it out. I don't think everyone checked it out though, but
yeah.
I think it was more.
I mean, I've had cell cameras help me in instances like that a few times. There was a buck in 2022. I was actually going to go sit one spot, and I got a cell camera on one of the private places that I have permission to hunt of, one of the big bucks in the area. And it was just like one picture of him with his head low. And I was like, he looks like he's dogging a doe. And I was like, so there's a hot doe in there. And I was like getting ready to get in the truck and drive to the one spot. And I was like, nah, I'm going there. So I went and set up in this little pinch. It was this little wood lot where, they all just kind of pinch down. Wouldn't you know it? An hour after light, I look up in this little thicket. There's 3 doe acting real funny up there. And I'm like, what are they doing? It's like, they're just kind of like running around a little bit, acting crazy. He was like, oh, wait a second. There's a buck in there. And so I gave a couple little short grunts, and then a couple seconds later, big antlers pop up out of the brush. I'm like, oh. So I snort wheezed at him.
Yeah.
That got his attention. He came to the edge of the brush, looking out into the open woods where I was. So at this point, he's like 60 yards, and he was looking around. He was probably a 3 or 4-year-old, I think, at the point. And he didn't see anything. So as soon as he turned around to head back in with the does, I snort wheezed at him again. He got pissed. I watched the hair on his back stand up. He looked over, shredded a tree, snapped it in half, turned around, came right at me. He was heading right for my tree. And then, so I was near the property line, probably within 80 yards or so. And another guy who was hunting on that neighboring property came walking out of the woods. This was 8 a.m., leaving his blind. Right as this deer's coming in, I needed 10 more seconds and he would have been in bow range. This guy comes walking out. I watch him stop, turn around, and he's looking at something. I'm like, what's he looking at? Then I see the guy. I'm like, oh, no. Buck bolts.
Gosh.
That was it.
Oh, see, that's the thing. That's like the worst part about, like, was that on public or private, you said?
That was private, but that very well happens on public too. So
yeah, like that's the worst part, I think, about hunting public, especially like because the area where I hunt. So I used to hunt Lancaster County here quite a bit, and there's like small little game lands. Like they're decent sizes, but like it's like patchy, but it's heavily pressured. Like you could be in a spot that you think is great, and all of a sudden you're sitting there, like you said, 8 a.m. comes around, and someone decides, they're not moving today. I'm just going to leave. It's like, just stay in the stand at least till like 11. Just wait it out just a little bit longer.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, 10 seconds. If he had stopped because he dropped his water bottle on the way out, I would have shot that deer.
Yeah. That would have been pretty cool to like shoot the deer, and then the guy comes walking by
right in front of him, kind of thing.
He like looks down and is like, wait, what? I thought the deer were moving.
No, they're just over here.
Yeah, not in front of your blind.
Yeah,
But
apparently not.
yeah, so with the cell cam talk, because that buck that you weren't able to harvest this year that was found dead, and then you got another buck with that cell camera, like you were set up in a tree and your cell camera was going off. Like, does that get in your head at all when that happens? Because I know if it was me, it would.
A little bit, yeah. If it's the buck I'm after, and I get a picture of him at like another spot,
Yep.
I'm getting down. I'm not going to waste my time. I mean,
Okay.
if I'm after one particular deer and I know he's at this area, I'm like a half mile away or however far away, and I know he's not going to make it to me, I'll just get down and leave, even if it's an hour and a half. Now, if there is other nice deer in the area that I would shoot to, I would probably stick it out and just see if one of them come by, which, I mean, mostly I target one deer, and I've done that for years, probably 16, 17. I've been doing that. I mean, I've always just have one particular deer that I just want to go after. That doesn't mean that it's just that deer.
Right.
I will shoot other ones if they come by me, but it's like that's the one that I'm trying to get, that I will actually go after.
Okay. So I think I'm kind of like in the same boat this year. Like, yeah, I'm after this one deer, but yet if another deer that gets me pumped up comes by me, I'm not going to pass it up. Because like the one thing that Ryan said that I think I said this on multiple podcasts now, but like one thing that Ryan said that really stuck with me is like, you don't pass up 130s when you haven't shot 130s. You know, like it's like, yeah, a 160 might be my target, but like if a 130 walks by me, I shouldn't pass it up because I don't have enough 130s under my belt to pass it up, you know?
And and that I'm in the same boat. Like I'm after a really big deer this year on public. I'll just say he's probably 160-ish inches. I don't have experience with a deer that big.
We're chasing the same buck.
My biggest deer was like 137 inches, a 9-point, when I was like 14 or 15 off of our private land here. And so of a 160-inch deer, I don't have any experience with that kind of caliber deer. I'm still going to, do whatever I can, use my experience to do it. But if a 135-inch, 10-point, let's say, comes by me while I'm hunting that deer, I ain't letting them walk.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, that's one thing my dad has always preached is like a 10-point, a PA 10-point is like something that is something you should chase, right? Like that's a shoulder mount worthy buck, a 10-point, just because it's perfectly symmetrical. Like you have 5 on both sides, like that's what everyone, like Ethan, that's what that's the only buck he get shoulder mount. Like the buck he got this year was 9.5 years old, an 8-point. And that thing to me, I was like, that would have been a shoulder mount to me. Right. Like, but I get up there and he's like, no, if it's only, I'm getting a shoulder mount, only if it's 10-point. Like, okay. Like that's what it is then. Right.
That's actually funny because my dad did the exact same thing.
Really?
I remember the years when I was growing up, when I was a kid, he was like, when I finally get that really nice 10-point with the symmetrical points, I'm getting him mounted. And he ended up shooting him. I think it was like 2011 or something. It wasn't like a huge buck. It was probably 115 inches, but it was like a nice symmetrical 10-point. He got him mounted.
Yeah. I think it's just a PA thing, honestly, just a perfect 10, right? It's just,
now, I've never shot a 10-point, so I don't know.
No, I haven't. Like my biggest one, well, the 6-point I got last year is my biggest like buck, but I got a 9 and a butte and like 3/8. So it's like I'm stuck at that. I need to get that 10,
Yeah, I'm stuck there too. I got like 5 different 8 points, like 3 or 4 9 points. I just can't get that 10-point for whatever reason.
I think 8 points are so common in Pennsylvania. Like I can go through my camp, but like it's weird. Like this past year when I was I hung cameras in like June, July timeframe, got a bunch of velvet pictures. I was going through them, like I had more 10s on my camera than like 8s. And I'm like, this is odd. Like I never had this many 10 points on my cameras before.
Yeah, I'd say there's pretty good genetics around there. If you got that many 10 points running around, I'd say it's worth keeping an eye on that area.
Yeah, that's one where I never post pictures or anything like that of where I'm at because
100%.
I don't want people find it. Because
that's why I don't post deer pictures much from public land because I don't want anyone to even recognize the deer and know where I'm at. you know, I take videos, you know, post them on my story of what I'm doing out in the woods. I make sure that I'm not around any terrain features that people can point out, like a power line or a pipeline type thing, or a parking lot where people can be like, I know where that is.
Yeah.
So, you know, I always make sure, even though I'm, you know, sharing that stuff, I make sure that you can't tell where I'm at.
I'll post like spikes. I'll post spikes, like little bucks, all that kind of stuff. Like, hey, you know, go have at it. Or like if I'm on my parents' camp, I don't go up there as much. So like if I pull cameras up there and they're like nice buck up there, I'll post them because I don't go up there nearly as much. Like I'm not trying to hunt that a ton, right? Like that's rifle spot for me. But like, yeah, when I'm down here, it's like I try, like even the videos I put together, like for the YouTube channel, it's like I try and put the least amount of like information out there because people, I mean, the hunting public has had it where it's like they go to a spot and people go to that spot then and they blow it up.
Yeah, a lot of their spots get burned from what I've heard. Yeah, which really sucks. But I guess, you know, that's what happens when you do that, you know, YouTube stuff like that. It's bound to happen. There are some really good people out there that can figure out where your spot is just by a little background in your video or picture. There's some real sleuths out there.
Big time, man. I've gotten a few messages where it's like, hey, are you in so-and-so spot? Like I've seen your truck here before. Well, granted, there's only really one parking spot in this one area. So it's like, you don't really have a lot of options to park, but that, you know, it is what it is. But, you know, hopefully I don't lose a buck because of the videos, because that would really suck.
Yeah, I think I've heard Walmart Tonic on his podcast talk about it. Like people know his truck now, his new white truck that he just got. It's very recognizable, and he has people that show up at his spots just because they see his truck. They're like, oh, must be a big buck here. And then people go in and blow it up and mess up his hunt.
That's one thing, man. If I had the money, I would buy a beater car. I'd buy like a beater SUV and just drive that thing and I don't even care. Like maybe every year just sell it and get a new one, like a new beater car every single year.
Yeah, like my truck, I wanted to put on, you know, the cool hunting decals and stickers on the back window and stuff from all the gear that I bought to look cool. But then I was like, but wait a second. If people see that, they might think that I'm like some diehard good hunter. And then when they see me parked in the parking lot, they're going to be like, maybe there's a big buck in here. Let me go check it out. So instead, I don't do anything in my truck. It's just it's an old truck. It just does what I need to. And, you know, it just kind of goes under the radar.
I think there's going to be some reverse actions going on, like putting PETA on the back and, you know, like the rainbow, the rainbow little rock on symbol and all that kind of stuff. Like put that
there
stuff
you go. That might work.
Baby on board, you know, my dinosaur family eats your dinosaur family, all that kind of stuff.
Maybe we shouldn't be saying this out loud for everyone to hear that.
I can bleep it out.
Oh, there you go.
It's a very long beep. But so you said you've been chasing, like trying to go after one particular buck, or like your main goal is one buck since you were like 16. So like, how did that come about? Like because I mean, for me, like I'm 31 and like, I feel like maybe at the age of 29 is when I started like trying to go after one particular buck. So like, how did you get there so quickly with that?
That's a good question. I guess I just
progressed
really quickly, maybe. I mean, so my family has like 90 acres here in PA, you know, our family property that we hunt. And, you know, we were able to get some pretty decent deer off of it. And I don't know, I think it was 2017, right around there was a really big buck that we were getting on camera, who I had actually shot at the year prior in 2016. And I was in a blind, my arrow clipped the side of the blind, and it like cut off the tip of his ear.
Ooh.
So basically I wanted revenge, kind of, so to speak. So I went after him in 2017 hard, and he was a big deer, and I passed some deer I probably shouldn't have that season just because I wanted him so bad. I ended up passing like 120-inch 8-point at 15 yards multiple times just because I wanted this other deer, who was a 10-point, by the way.
Of course.
Chased him all archery season. First week of rifle season, I saw him, couldn't quite, get a shot at him, and then he just disappeared, and then that was it.
And then that kind of led to, from there on,
that just kind of got me hooked, really. I think that was probably the first moment I really targeted one deer specifically, and then from then on, I've just kind of wanted to do that ever since.
Do you think it's the chase? Do you think it's like that game of like chess, cat mouse type thing? Is that what you enjoy the most about like chasing after, like, because these buck that no one wants to chase after a 1.5 or 2.5-year-old. Like they're not as smart as like
I could walk up on a spike, right. That's not going to make me feel too good when I shoot that.
Yeah. So like, is it that game?
100%. Yeah. The challenge, the chase, personally, I love putting out the cameras and doing the scouting and putting the puzzle pieces together more than I even enjoy the actual hunting itself. I love figuring out what he's doing more so than actually hunting. That's actually my least favorite part, to be completely honest with you.
I am right there with you, because hunting sucks.
It does.
So like going out there, putting them, like, one, how much gear we take in, like saddle, stand, if you are hybrid, or like if you do a saddle platform, sticks and all that kind of stuff, like then your bow, then like if you're self-film and you do all that kind of stuff, or if you're just going out there with all the food you have and you're hot, when you go out there early season, like it's not as enjoyable as we make it seem, since we're so like addicted to it, or like driven by this, like scouting and putting the cameras out, checking the cameras, finding all the sign, the scrapes, the rubs, even those little minute details of like, you go past a briar bush and you see like, oh, that's nibbled down, but yet there's new growth coming off it. So they're going to come back here and eat that again. Like finding those little details, that's just like, that's what drives me. That's what makes it fun for me also.
Yeah. For me, it's like when I'm out scouting, I almost get like a high off of, putting the puzzle pieces together. When I check a camera and I got this big buck on, and I'm like, okay, what's he doing? So he was here, where did he come from? And I'll start trying to backtrack. And then I find a big pile of poop. I'm like, well, that's got to be his. And then I find a rub, and it's like, for example, the buck I'm after is really wide. So I found a rub where he was rubbing a tree and he was hitting a sapling 2 feet off to one side. And I was like, well, that's him. I was like, there's no other deer in the area that matches that. So that just like really gets me going when I see that. I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. That was him. He was here. Let's figure out what he's doing from here. What's he doing?
Yeah. There's multiple times like this past season. So I got all my cameras out. So I have, I think 33, 32 cameras that I have out, and like, I have them all out. Now, most of them I kept out all season, because they were in good sign last season. So I'm like, I'm not going to move. I'm just going to refresh batteries, keep them out, all that kind of stuff. But like this past season, like April to May timeframe, like I was out there 6 days. And like I was able to scout a ton, like put on a ton of miles. And like there was one day I found this like really hot sign, like really great sign, like heavy trail, big rubs, big scrapes, and beds and all this kind of stuff. Jumped a bunch of deer out of the area. And I left there and I was like, I'm going to kill a monster buck. Like I felt so confident leaving that area. Like I was on cloud 9 leaving that area.
Yeah.
How many times do you feel that leaving the woods when you're scouting?
On the good days when I find the, almost losing power there. We got a storm going on outside, so hopefully that doesn't happen. But on the good days when I find the good sign, I leave the woods feeling like, on top of the world, you could say. I'm just like, hell yeah, all right, figuring it out. This is going to be awesome. I got these cameras in these good spots. I'm going to get this buck on it. And then there's the days where you don't see anything. Like last Sunday, I was out in the pouring rain. I didn't post much because I couldn't really take any videos. And I didn't find any sign. I took 4 cameras. I was in a newer area that I thought maybe this big deer was hanging out in, because I'm trying to find his summer and early fall area right now. So I was in this new area scouting around, was going to hang cameras if I found any good sign. Didn't find shit. So I actually walked out of there soaking wet, no cameras hung, barely found any sign. I was a little disappointed actually, but at least now I know, okay, they're not there. So I can just cross that area off the list.
I think that is one good thing, like because there's been multiple times. I think like 2 years ago, it was like, if I don't go in here and find sign, it's a complete waste. But then also it's like, if you think about it, that's a spot you're not going to hunt then. So like that's still a positive, even
You're
though
just narrowing down, the areas, closing
exactly.
in on where they're at.
It's almost like when you're hunting, right? And you have an encounter, or you have an encounter with a buck or some deer in general, you don't look at it as a success in that moment, but then you look back and it's like, okay, I at least had an encounter with a buck.
Yeah.
Like that's huge.
Yeah, I look at it the same way. Like, I was out in Ohio and I saw the biggest deer I've ever seen on the hoof while hunting. He was at least 160 inches, just an absolute monster. And that was my first morning there. Yeah, I didn't get a shot. I watched him stand there for about 5-6 minutes, and then he just kind of slinked off into the brush, and I never saw him again. And to be honest, that was just the coolest thing I've ever seen. I didn't feel bad that I didn't even get a shot at him. I was just standing there like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. And I just love that. It's just, even if you don't get a shot at the deer, just like that big 8-point I was hunting this past season, that morning he came by at 45 yards. I didn't beat myself up over it because I wasn't close enough to him. I don't see it as me setting up wrong. He just chose the wrong trail. It was him, not me. But
Exactly.
I just look at it as, well, that was a cool experience. It solidified that what I was doing was correct. I was just off by 10 yards, or he was off by 10 yards. However you want to look at it. Yeah. I did the right things.
Exactly. Like when we had the Rut camp up in Potter County this past year, like I had an encounter with a very mature buck up there who went, he was the close. At first I saw him 200 yards away. And then eventually he started moving in close. Like he got to maybe 60 yards and was just walking up the spine of the ridge. And like looking at in that moment, I was like, man, I was this far off, right? Like I should have been over here. Why was I not over there? But now you look back at it right now and it's like, I got to watch a mature buck be a mature buck in the woods and use a landscape to travel. Like that's cool to me, to be able to just see him do that.
Absolutely. And even at the same time, now that you've seen that, now you can look, okay, what was specific about that area that he was traveling? Why was he there? And then you can put that into play in the future when you see, a similar situation. You're like, well, that last deer I saw, I was 100 yards, down this way. So maybe I should set up more over here, which looks just like the spot he came through. And then that could help you set you up for future success.
Exactly. I mean, that goes with any encounter you have. Like that, there's so many options, so many ways you can learn in the woods. It's not just by putting an arrow or a bullet through a deer. It's like the encounters you have, or the failures you have, the misses you have, all that kind of stuff. Like it leads you to be a better woodsman.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people say this, but I totally agree with it. It's the failures that you have that you learn more from, not your successes. You could go out and have 10 successful hunts, but you're not going to learn near as much as if you have 10 failed hunts. You're going to learn way more in those failed hunts than you ever will the successful ones.
Yeah. I mean, my brother-in-law doesn't hunt, doesn't do anything like that, but like he said it best in the one video is like, this story here, the missed buck, the one you couldn't recover, all that kind of stuff is going to stick in your head more, and you're going to remember that more. You're going to learn from that more than you are than with the successful harvest you had. Because it's like in your mind, that was all good stuff in success.
Yeah. There's nothing to critique.
Yeah, exactly. It's like everything went perfect that day. So why critique it? But then you look back at the non-success in quotation marks. It's like, oh, I could have done this. I could have done this. I could have done this. Like that morning was a shit show. I left my bow back at the truck, had to go back to the truck, then ride back in. Then it was just couldn't find a tree to sit up. And it was like, everything was just wrong. But now looking back, it's like, it had to happen that way because I had to learn from that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had my fair share of failed hunts, that's for sure. I mean, I'm 23, and I'd like to say I'm pretty, seasoned as a hunter, and I know I will only get better in time. I don't plan on stopping this anytime soon. So, it's just every failure, I'm just going to get better and better and hone my skills and just get more successful and hopefully maybe get a little bit better,
So I'm talking about getting better. I want to talk because since you try and go after one buck and you're trying to build the puzzle pieces for this buck, let's walk through those puddle pieces and try and like, because you said you're going after one this year that's possibly 160, really wide. All like I'd obviously do not give away anything. Do not give away locations, anything like that. Terrain, like we don't have to go in depth with terrain even. But like, what kind of puzzle piece are you building to get on this buck? Like, is everything like kind of the same with each buck you're going after? Like I need to have these types of signs to be able to build a good, outcome for this deer here, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite say I have like a set thing. I just let the deer tell me and, what I need to know. And I will figure out what that specific deer needs, what I can figure out about him to get him killed, basically. And it's all different. Every deer is different. I've never seen a deer do the exact same thing as another one. They're all going to do stuff different. I basically I rely on the cameras, make sure there's a deer there first that I'm looking for, see where he is, where he's hanging out the most. And then I will go in and look for sign, okay, here's a rub line. Here's, some good scrapes. Here's a possible buck bed. Don't know if it's his or not, but I'll mark that on my OnX. I mean, if you looked at my OnX, it's freaking full of pins. It looks like a disaster. My dad shares the same account. He's like, dude, what the hell you got going on over here? He's like, I can't see anything. I mean, so I just, I look for the sign like that rub, very specific rubs, very specific droppings, like really, really big size droppings. I found some, which I'm pretty confident is off this buck I'm after, that I sent it to a few people and people were like, dude, that's elk poop. That's not deer. Because it was like so gigantic.
Really?
And yeah, and this deer is huge. He's not just racked, like his body is monstrous. So I'm figuring it's him. Of course, I don't know for sure, but that's just one of those things I can put in there, and then maybe it can help me build the puzzle pieces even more. So, like this area, it's a new area actually. I've never really hunted there much. I scouted it last spring for the first time, found some good sign in there, and I hung cameras I guess it was September. I didn't get out into hang cameras in the summer at all in 2024. So I got out in September, hung like 9 or 10 cameras out, and kind of spread them around on some of the better sign I found. And I just let them soak all season. I went back and pulled them in December right after rifle season ended, and this buck was all over them. He was on like 7 of the 9 cameras. Half of the time was in daylight. The cameras basically told me he has like a 300-acre core area that he was in a bunch. There was times I was seeing him like once or twice a week between October 23rd and the end of November. So like that really gives me a very solid base to work off of now that I'm actually aware that he's in there. So I'm basing everything off of that. So I'm hanging cameras in those same spots again, but then now I'm branching off because again, I'm trying to find his summer area right now because I had the cameras in September. I didn't get any pictures of him until October 23rd. That was my very first picture of him. So he moved in the area for the rut. So where he is in the summer, early fall, I'm not sure. But I know where he is that time period. I know he's killable based off what he did last year. I mean, like I could have killed him last year if I had cell cameras and knew he was in there. He'd be dead. He'd be on my wall right now. As long as I didn't miss or whatever. But he was there. He was very vulnerable. So I'm spreading my cameras out. I got way more cameras in. I'm going way in on him. Trying to find his areas, scouting, looking for sign that's specifically his. Not just general sign. I mean, I do take note of the general sign anyway, but I'm specifically looking for sign that could be from him.
So when you say the cameras, like, and you said it was like 300-yard radius, I think you said, right?
Like a 300-acre core area. Where I had my cameras. I basically had like 9 cameras in like a 500-acre area, but he was only on 7 of the 9. So then that kind of shrank it to like about a 300-ish acre area and I was getting him on daylight quite a bit in these areas. So I was like, well, he's got to be, hanging around in this area, bedding in here quite a bit.
Was there anything, because with it during rifle season, like, was there anyone on camera during that rifle season where like, it was like no one came by these cameras? Like it must be because it's a safe area for him.
Actually, there's a lot of hunting pressure in that area.
Okay.
A lot. It's actually surprising. When I went and hung the cameras in September, there was no tree stands or cameras or nothing. But when I went in December after rifle season to pull them, the amount of new tree stands that I saw set up, I saw several cameras out too. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the hell? And so I think I had posted on my story that first day when I went in to pull cameras, I was like, I don't know where all this new sign came from, but this could be bad. You know, I thought this was going to be a good area, but with all this pressure, there might not be anything on it. Well, I was wrong. There was some good shit on it. And so I don't know if they figured out that he was in there too. So then, you know, everyone was in there after him, but they didn't kill him. And I had a camera on a scrape within 80 yards of someone's climber. And I had him on that scrape in daylight 3 times during archery season.
Wow. I just, because I found that too, like the sign, I found someone's climber and this hot sign I found where I left that woods, and I was like, man, this I feel on top of the world right now, right? The sign was like maybe 300 yards behind this guy's climber. Like, it's like they know where everyone hunts. They're like making a big circle. Like, you'll find sign on that bench going towards that climber. Then all of a sudden you'll see like a sharp going up 300 yards behind him, and they'll drop back down.
Just
like,
staying away from it.
Yeah. It's crazy how smart these deer are with that stuff.
And I couldn't believe it, honestly, because like I saw the climber there when I went in and pulled the camera. I was like, ah, shit, there's probably not going to be anything on it. And then when I got home and checked, I was like, wow, he was on this a few times with that climber there. Now, I don't know how many times that guy was in there. I had a few pictures of guys walking through rifle season. I had several guys, you know, walking around still hunting with their rifles and stuff in the very area that this buck was at. But I mean, he was still in there pretty active. Rifle season, I didn't see him much. I only saw the only picture I got of him in rifle season was actually on the last day, and it was in daylight.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like during that rifle season, like people drive so much and they put so much pressure on these deer that I feel like they hunker down. I just feel like they like stay in like a very small area where they know no one's really going to go, and like there's food there, there's water there, or if there's going to be snow, they don't really need to go find water. They can just eat the snow. But like they just hunker down during that season because they know people drive so much.
Well, especially those older deer on public land. I mean, they've been around it enough to know, so they're able to figure out areas that they know that they don't normally see people in. So they know that specific area that is overlooked, as most people would say, is safe. Yep. And he'll just stay there as long as he can. And, you know, they're able to, you know, use the wind and, you know, listen. And they're, especially those mature bucks, they're very cagey and they're very careful with how they're traveling around. I mean, I've seen enough mature bucks in my time that you watch them come to the edge of an opening and they stand there for 10 minutes and they're just their ears moving.
Yep.
And they're just looking for any kind of danger. But, you know, those young buck don't do that.
No.
But those older ones will. And they know where it's safe. Every now and then, you know, they mess up and they get shot. But, you know, a lot of times they've got it figured out.
That's that dumb point, right? When they're thinking with the wrong head at that point. That's November timeframe. Like, that's exactly that Halloween to like November 15th timeframe is like when they're not thinking right. And that's when they're gonna mess up. But like it's so hard to plan for that period because it's like you got to figure out which does come in at that time, which that's a whole nother like trail cam process in its own to like figure out when they're chasing and when they're, you know. Now, I found with the buck that I'm after, it's like, it seems like early to the middle October is like when he comes and that's the only time he'll really hit a scrape. So like, I think that he knows that it is an early doe that comes in. So he's going to go to his spot because he's going to chase early. Like that. Yeah. That's where cameras come in there.
Yeah, sometimes I like to, especially like in the spring, you know, May, June time when I'm out scouting, I like to pay attention to does and if they have fawns. If I come across a doe that has a week-old fawn, I'll backtrack that 201 days or whatever it is and figure out about when that doe would have been bred, and it'll be like, okay, that would have been like the 3rd week of October, so this area is hot around that time. And you know, the way I had hung my cameras, which is kind of my own thing that I kind of do my own. I kind of call it like the rule of 3. So when I'm checking out a new area of public land, you know, I got that general area, I'll go in and scout it and I'll find 3 different sections of good sign. and then I'll hang 3 cameras in each area. So I had 9 cameras out, but in 3 different areas, but they weren't like totally like completely far apart. They were within half mile or so. And I think they were in like a triangular pattern of where the good sign was. And I got pictures of this buck, and among other buck, but this one specifically, in all those areas at different times. So now I know there's a doe group over here that's coming in, probably a doe group here. And so it'll be like October 23rd, he's here. October 29th, he's over here. And then November 5th, he's over here. So I'm able to actually figure out when some of those doe groups are going into heat just by having my cameras out for one season in an area I've never seen before.
So with those rules of 3, where it's like 3 cameras in 3 different sections, how are you planning? Like, are you looking at OnX first to figure out like, okay, maybe I should check this area out first, hang 3 cameras here, go here? Or is it like when you find hot sign, okay, I'm going to focus, only put 3 cameras in this area, and then maybe go up a little bit more? Like, say, let's use the hunting mountains. All right. So like maybe you'll find sign at the bottom third, right? Bottom third of the top third. You'll hang 3 cameras there because it's hot. Then you'll go up to the top. You'll find good spots there and hang 3 cameras up there. And then you come down again between the bottom third and the very top and try and find something there. Is that like what you're talking about? Or like
almost, you know, just not necessarily like in different elevations. Like the way I do it is I'm looking at the area first, e-scouting on OnX, and I'll pick out some like specific areas like habitat differences. Okay, there's a creek running through here where there's some hemlock, you know, it could be thick in there where it meets the hardwoods. There might be a scrape there, or there's a little bit of a rise here. Maybe there's a doe bedding area right there. And so I'll mark those. And when I go into scout, I'll check those areas. Hey, I just bumped 6 doe off that little knoll. I know that they're bedding there. So then I'll look around. Here's a scrape. Here's another scrape. Here's a heavy trail. Okay. So then I'll mark all that sign. And then I move on to the, you know, and I just keep following the sign around. And, you know, basically I just keep marking everything, all the sign, all the scrapes, where I'm jumping deer, all the rubs, the heavy trails, the intersections. And then I'll go home and I get on my laptop, open up OnX, and I actually sit there and examine scrapes. And I hang most of my cameras on scrapes. If I find the right trail or trail intersection, I will definitely hang cameras on that, but it's majority scrapes. So I will look at that and be like, well, okay, this was a really good scrape and it was around where those does were bedding. So I'll hang a camera there and I'll probably do this scrape, which is on the other side of the doe bedding area in case the wind's different maybe. And then there's this heavy trail here that looked like it was an intersection. It was perpendicular with maybe where they're going, you know, the doe trail is. So then there's my 3 cameras for that one area. And then I'll be like, well, there's another pocket of sign over here. And I was like, okay, well, there's 2 good scrapes I had marked here. So let's throw 2 cameras there. And then, you know, maybe 1 more here on this creek crossing type thing. And that's basically how I will go about it.
Okay. All right. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So how far apart usually do you want those groups of 3, or does it really matter? Just like where the sign is, like
where the sign is. I mean, if they're like a mile apart, that's not really going to help you a whole lot. I mean, I went into this area very specific because I had a lot of the kind of stuff I was looking for e-scouting. It had, you know, the terrain, had a lot of habitat, you know, change, and it was a bigger area. So I was like, okay, this is about where I want to be. I mean, so I ended up doing the 3 groups with 3 cameras. It was in about a 700-acre area.
Okay. Because I'm kind of doing the same thing this year. So, well, I guess last year's when I started it. So the area where I found this buck, I think I had 9 cameras in there. And then this year now I have, I think, a total of 14 cameras in there, just spreading out, right? So I'm in this one area now, and then I have another area up on top that's probably 4 miles away that I have like a few cameras just over some good scrapes up in there, just, you know, taking inventory, seeing what's up there. And then I have stuff that's another 2 miles away, the other direction of where I have the 12 cameras at, and, you know, taking inventory over there. So like, I feel like my mindset kind of going with it is probably like you too, where it's like, okay, once I have this area down and once I figure this one buck out, I have all this other inventory now for other areas I can hunt and probably maybe get on another big buck. Is that like,
right?
I feel like
I'm sorry. Once I have a good area figured out, I will do that too. That's kind of where I originally got this rule of 3 thing that I came up with. I was hunting a different section of game lands that I've hunted like 3 or 4 years now. And my first time in there, I had picked out 3 different terrain features in 3 completely different areas because it's a very huge, vast piece of public land.
Mm-hmm.
And they were separated by like miles. So like they were totally different deer, but I was trying to figure out what areas had, you know, the better deer. So again, I picked out 3 different terrain features that were about the same, picked out a few different little points in each one that I wanted to make sure I go and check out while scouting. I go in, scout it, you know, I scouted all 3, went back. Okay, well, this was a good scrape. This was a good scrape. I jumped deer here. It looked like there was 5 beds clustered here. They're probably doe bedding. So then I'll go back and I'll hang 3 cameras in each one. So I had 9 cameras, 3 areas, 3 cameras per area. And I just let them soak all season. And then I went back and checked them. And one area had a lot of human pressure, like a lot of people, and not really anything like super exciting. I think the biggest buck was maybe 130 inches. And this area can produce way bigger deer for sure.
Right.
So I kind of just, you know, chalk that area off. I won't do it like the very first year. I did it 2 years in a row just to be sure, you know, just in case the one year was an off year. So after 2 years about seeing the equal thing, I just, you know, I don't go back to that one specific area. Same with another one. This other area had less human pressure, but the biggest deer I had pictures in there was like 125 inches. Yeah. And I just wasn't quite what I was looking for. So chalk that area off. And then, but there was a third area that had the deer I was looking for. I had several really big mature deer on there a couple years in a row. So I'm like, okay, this is the spot. The other 2 I didn't focus on. And then I started focusing on that one.
Yeah. I just, it takes a while. And like when we first started the podcast, I was so against like playing that long game. And man, now I love that long game of like building this history with an area, like learning the area. Like I think that's the best part. Like we talked about, like we love the in-season scouting. We love the scouting in general. Like the hunting, yeah, we love going out there. We love chasing the animals and actually be able to have a chance of shooting them. But like the build up to it is the best part. And drawing it out, like if it goes 3 years of chasing one buck, but you're able to maybe during rifle get another buck down a different area, and you know that buck you're chasing is still alive the whole time. It's like that it makes it so much more rewarding especially if there's comes a time when you're able to put that deer down like that. It's just, it's so like I had a dream last night about this buck, and I had a dream that I shot him, and it was the most amazing thing ever. Like I had all my buddies there, and like we put him in the back of the truck. I got him home. Like the thing was like, I got to take a picture of him with my wife and daughter. Like it was like that. It was the whole dream. I was like,
that's a pretty cool dream. Actually, I can't say I've ever had one like that, very specific, but I do have dreams like that for sure.
Yeah, it was like, and then I woke up and I was like, was that real? Like I literally
started looking around your wall. Is he up there?
I was like, I got to go out in the garage to check if this is real or not. Such a vivid dream. And I was like, man, that's the first time I ever had that dream. It was probably like, I didn't want to wake up from it. I was almost sad waking up from the dream. It was like, man,
well, whatever you did in the dream, just do that now and it'll come true.
It was during rifles. Like it was weird though. Like the terrain features did not match what I'm hunting. It's like, I don't think it's very comparable, but it was also
not 100% accurate, but it's close enough.
Yeah. Plus, when I was there gutting him, I had another big buck walk out the main trail that he came out.
Oh yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly. That was my thought too. But so, what is your favorite terrain feature to hunt or to focus on, or like? Just like, because for me, I think everyone likes them, thermal hubs. Like that's just a cool thing. Like especially the big ones, like Clinton County, Potter County, for example. Like you find a thermal hub up there where there's multiple drainages coming down. You go up there and you find this massive scrape. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, right? Like that is what people are drawn to. But there's other things obviously that are attractive to me as well.
For me in my area, I don't see many like thermal hubs, so that I don't really have much experience with When I was out in Ohio in the hills, I did see that out there, and I would find some good scrapes in them, but I don't see that in my area. So certain areas I hunt have a lot of terrain, and others I don't. So the areas that do have a lot of terrain, I like big draws, like big valleys where there's multiple creeks coming down, maybe forming like a big Y. And I will check on those side hills, at the little points in between the Y, look for bedding on each end. Especially those little drainages that the deer like to cross those. Usually about like the top third or so, I will find them kind of side hilling around, crossing that drainage, going around to the other side. I find that quite a bit.
Yeah, I like that. I know everyone said about like that, the top third kind of, that I like that, like bottom of the top third. That's where I found the most sign at this past season, was the bottom of that top third. The scouting season is like, man, the sign was unbelievable. And I just never really thought about it, because I do like those drainages, but when I find like those little like seeps coming out of the mountain, I just love, for some reason, there's always good sign around those little seeps too.
Yeah, sometimes those little ones have the most sign, I have found. It's usually the bigger ones will draw more hunters, so that the deer actually will, they will purposefully won't leave sign, or won't even really be in those areas because they know there's hunting. But those little overlooked ones, especially like I use Caltopo sometimes, when I'm e-scouting on OnX, I'll go back between OnX and Caltopo, because then I can, do the 10-foot topography lines, and I can really see those little micro changes in the in the terrain. And sometimes you can find those little spots, then you go in there to scout and you're like, oh, here's the sign. They're using this little tiny 10-foot drop, that you can't see on other maps until you get in here. And sometimes that's where all the sign is.
What is a kind of like an overlooked thing that you found this scouting this past season that you think a lot of people kind of overlook? Like it kind of like maybe even steer away from. Like, I don't really want to. Never mind. We're not going to say that, because I feel like you got to put boots on the ground to like figure that out. Like, because there's one, I'll tell you off air, that I really like, that I don't really want to put out there yet until I put this buck down. Put it that way.
Yeah, that's a smart idea. That's the better way to do it.
Okay, we'll ask this question instead. How many more cameras are going to add to your arsenal?
As many as it takes.
As many as it takes. I saw a good deal on it was actually just today I saw it, but it was Spy Point. It was like, I don't run, like, the cell cams, like, I'm not huge on them, but they had, I think it's just standard cameras they have. It looks like it's like a big boxy type camera, but it's like 4 for $100. And I was like, that's not a bad, and it came with an SD card too from Spy Point. I was like, that's not a bad deal.
Spy points that aren't cell cameras. I don't think I've seen those yet. I'll have to look into those.
I think
for public land, I run the cheap ones. Mostly I do like the cheap muddy cameras. I can get them in packs of 3 or 4 between like $25 to $30 a camera. In case it gets stolen, and I can afford to have 30 of them instead of 10, more quality cameras.
Yeah.
So one goes bad, you just chuck it and buy 3 more. So
yeah,
right now I got 12 cameras out for this deer right now, and I'm planning on probably having 16, 17 out maybe, before, hopefully in the next couple weeks. And then I'm saving 3 other ones for a new area that I'm also scouting. I was scouting this spring. Not really the same general area. It's a few miles away, but it's another area that I know can produce some really good deer. So I'm going to be hanging 3 cameras in there, kind of doing my rule of 3 thing, but I'm only going to be having 1 camera per little area. So it'll still do, the job that I need, but I'm trying to have as many cameras out for this big one so I can really, close in on what he's doing.
You said something there that I want to, when you look at an area, how do you know it will produce? Like, is there something
that has the habitat that I know has the good deer? That was one, that's one thing you just kind of learn over time, especially with e-scouting. You can kind of tell what the good habitat is. Like, okay, here's hemlocks, Here's some more open woods. So you can kind of be like, well, this has got to be a little bit more thick. Here's a lot of hardwoods that are probably open. There, there probably isn't a whole lot there. You can look for those edges that match up with different terrain features. And if it's like right off the road, easy access, there's probably going to be more people. So you want to get something that's a little bit harder to get to that, you're still going to get people. You're always going to get people. You can't get away from anybody. That's not going to happen, especially not nowadays. But you can at least limit the amount of people that you get in there. So then you have a more general idea of, where some bigger deer are going to be. Plus, I know a few people in the area, and I have heard of big deer, so that helps. All right,
that word of mouth does help quite a bit.
It does.
So the buck you got this year. Let's hear that story before we end the podcast. Let's end it with the story here.
Okay. So after the big 8 that I was chasing got killed, and I basically went in all in on this deer. So I was kind of scrambling now going into, the pre-rut end of October. I didn't really have a target. So I was like out hanging cameras. I was doing a lot of scouting on some of the private that I was on, but some public too, out hunting, just trying to see what I could, just turn rocks over, see what I could find. And about October 27th or 28th, I started getting pictures of, a nice 8-point on a pipeline. He kept coming out. It was a new pipeline that had clover on it. And so I was like, okay, he's here. And I know there's does that come out to eat. And I'm like, so he's got to be coming around here looking for these does, just waiting for one to go and heat. So I went on and sat there in my saddle, and the tree I picked out was freaking bulletproof. I had deer walking all around me. They had no idea it was there. I ended up hunting there like 4 nights in a row. I saw this one deer. He wasn't huge, but he was like he's like 115 inches, for PA. He had a broken G2. And I hadn't filled my tag the last 2 years, in 2022 or 2023, because I was after really big specific deer, and I just ended up not shooting anything else. So at this point I was like, you know what, I could shoot a nice one. My ego isn't that high, so I was I was like, I'll go after this deer. He's a nice deer. I can get it done, and then I'll go out to Ohio and I'll shoot the big one then. Yeah. So I sat there. I saw him the end of October. He didn't quite get close enough. He ended up chasing some does away from me. Tried grunting at him. He wasn't really interested because he had the does. So I hunted there 2 more nights. Then I had an off wind, so I didn't go in there. And of course, he shows up in daylight, walk right by the tree I was setting up in.
Yep.
But then the next night I had good wind, and it was like the same temperature, and that was November 4th. So I went in there again, same tree, and he was the only deer I saw. He came right behind me, right down the edge of this pipeline. It was over an hour before dark. I mean, he was like up and moving like early, and you could tell he was dogging. He had his head down. He was searching for a doe. He came right by me at like 8 yards, stopped him, let it rip. He ran 60 yards and tipped over.
Oh my gosh, love that. That's so the 115-inch buck with a broken G2. Yeah.
So he probably would have been like 120-ish inches, maybe a little less than that. But yeah,
very, very unique. He was a brawler then, it seems like, probably with that broken.
Yeah, he was very built, like his body. Okay. He was probably only a 3-year-old, but he was just he looked like a tank. His body, he had a really big front chest, and he was rutting. Like after I shot him, I could smell him laying over there from like 60, 70 yards away.
That's awesome. That's cool. That at least you were able to connect and not go like, I know when you chase after one particular buck, or like you're trying to target one particular buck, I would imagine it's still not easy going multiple years without getting a buck down. Like I can imagine that's not something you really want to do, but it's also like, this is kind of what you sign up for, right?
Yeah. I mean, I will admit it did get to me at times. Like I said, 2022, 2023, I was after 2 different big bucks each year, and it just didn't quite pan out for either of them. And I just couldn't quite get on another one to connect, didn't quite. There were some other deer that I was on that were big, and I messed up on. Again, it's one of those failures that you learn from, and that's where I'm at now. But so yeah, it stung, especially 2 years in a row getting skunked like that. I was like, yeah, all right. But every year I just went into it just like I did the year before, just brush it off. But shooting that buck last year, it did help get the monkey off my back. So now I'm like really ready going into this fall with this big deer that I'm after. I'm going all in, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, feeling very confident, especially now you were able to put one down. And you're like, okay, I can still do it. I still got it. I can still get it. I can still get it done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I basically had that big 8-point like dead to rights for the most part. I don't want to say I did for sure, but like I did the right things when I was hunting him. So I at least felt confident about that. It was just some other hunter got him before me, and that's just how it is. So I did good on him, and then I was able to seal, and fill my tag on this buck. So I did what I wanted to do. I felt accomplished. So
yeah, man, that's awesome that you're able to get one down, especially a brawler like that. Like I think brawling buck is they're cool to get. They're unique rack. They fight a lot, so it takes away the bully of the woods, right?
Yeah, and I actually had a picture of him on a trail camera at a creek crossing, about 400 yards behind me, about 25 minutes before I shot him. He was crossed in a bedding area across the swamp, and I had him come through, get a drink of water, cross right over the creek crossing, and then he must have got on the pipeline and headed right down for me.
That's pretty sick. That's awesome.
It's actually a really cool picture too.
Yeah, that's cool. You'll have to send it to me. I would like to see that.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Well, Dawson, man, it has been awesome talking to you and having you on the podcast. Time flew, man. It was when you talk whitetails, it just flew by.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice. I gotta love it.
Where can people follow you at and follow along with you and your hunting journey?
Everything I do, I post on my Instagram. You can just follow me at Dawson Oruska. I'll post my stories when I'm out in the woods, scouting, hanging cameras. Every now and then I'll give you an update on my hunting season too. And, I do still post some of the food plots and stuff I do on the private, family property we have here. So I do that side of it as well. But that's where you can find all of my hunting adventures.